Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's Monday Zen and Zazen group. Today is one of the weeks I will talk about Sawaki Roshi's quotes from this book to you. But before I start to talk, let's sit together for 30 minutes. Thank you, thank you everybody for joining. Could you hear the bell in the beginning? Yes, because there's this button that I have to press each time to turn the, how do you say? Usually there's a voice filter that helps to reduce other sounds, but there's a button that I can press and that helps this sound of the bell to transmit. But today I forgot it in the beginning, so maybe the sound of the bell in the beginning was not so clean, and in the end probably it sounded a little bit different. That's because I remembered at the start of Zazen, after the bell, to press it. Anyway, today I want to talk about Sawaki Roshi's quotes from this book to you, and in the printed version we are on page 54 at the beginning of chapter 10. The first, they're all kind of very short quotes that come. The first one is, when you practice Zazen, completely renew yourself. When you practice Zazen, completely renew yourself. I don't know exactly the Japanese original, but I think a little bit more literal translation would be, when you practice Zazen, yourself becomes completely anew. So you renew yourself. It sounds like something that you do, like you maybe renew your house. You have a new hairstyle, you buy a new car, everything becomes new. But the point that Sawaki Roshi makes here, it's not like that you reinvent yourself, you make everything new about yourself. You develop a new identity. It's more that I talk about this taking a break from the game. So basically you take a step out of the story that you tell about yourself. It's not the self that sits there, that continued from yesterday and is gonna be just a little bit different self tomorrow. But you take a step out of that story. Especially when we talked about the precious mirror samadhi text, there was this metaphor of the mirror. You look in the mirror, and what you see there is your old self, basically. Of course, the self that you saw there maybe this morning is not exactly the same self that you saw there yesterday and maybe last year, 3 years ago. You get a little bit, just a little bit older every day. And in a way you could say every day you see just a little bit different self there. But I think that's not the totally new self that Sawaki Roshi talks about. The self that you see in the mirror is never totally new. It might be just a little bit different every day, but it's not totally new. But the self that's doing the seeing here, the consciousness, so to speak, that is seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and feeling the world right now, that's always totally new. Or maybe you should rather say, you can't even compare it. You can compare your face that you see today to the face that you saw yesterday. But the consciousness that's seeing and hearing and feeling and tasting, you can't compare that. There's no comparison possible. And basically what Sawaki Roshi is saying here is, when you sit Zazen, you take a break from the self that you see in the mirror. You return to this moment that's beyond comparison, and that moment is the famous here and now. Sorry. Let's do another one. When you practice Zen, it has to be here and now. It has to be about yourself. Don't let Zen become a rumor that has nothing to do with you. A rumor that has nothing to do with you. Like a lot of people, maybe it's even stronger here in Asia than in Europe or in America, when they think about Buddhism, well, they think about the teaching of the Buddha and that the Buddha was a great person, a very important person. And he did Zazen under the Bodhi tree and thus he reached enlightenment. But there's a lot of people that think that that has nothing to do with them. That's what the Buddha did. And that makes the Buddha such a special person, that he did such hard practice. But few people make the connection to themselves and say, well, if the Buddha did it, I want to do it too. I want to follow the Buddha. I want to walk in the Buddha's footsteps. It shouldn't be a rumor, it has to be about yourself. And sometimes when I travel through Germany and I do sessions here and there, I make this kind of joke when I see that people outsource a lot of things. For example, if you organize a retreat, but you also have to manage the meals, it's sometimes very difficult or even impossible to both make sure that everybody can sit and somebody's leading the sittings, but also somebody's cooking and everybody has food. So people kind of outsource the cooking. They order food from outside. Or there was this case already a couple of years ago in Switzerland. There was a conference. About 50 Zen teachers also had gathered to discuss about Zen in daily life. Now, today, in the 21st century in the West, what does it mean to practice in daily life? And in between conferences, you could drink coffee and exchange with other teachers. And somebody dropped a cup of coffee right before the next talk started. And that person was looking for a broom and something to clean it up, and then the other people around said, oh, forget about it, the next talk starts, the next talk starts, somebody's going to take care of it. And I kind of had to laugh because people had come together for a weekend to discuss the meaning of Zen in daily life, all of them Zen teachers. But when somebody drops a cup, they say, well, somebody's going to take care of it. So basically, cleaning or cooking has nothing to do with me. Anybody can do that. So as a kind of joke in that year later, I said, why don't you outsource Zazen as well? Probably you can find somebody from Eastern Europe also who's going to sit for you for a couple of dollars an hour. And of course, nobody would do that. But why not? If you can outsource cooking, if you can outsource the cleaning, why don't outsource Zazen? If we don't take care, we live our lives. I think that's something that Dogen Zenji writes in the Tenzo Kyokun, the instructions for the cook. A stupid person lives his life as if it was somebody else's. He thinks about his own life as if it was a third person, somebody else. The cooking I do, anybody could do it. The cleaning I do, anybody could clean for me. My Zazen could be done by anybody's Zazen. It's almost as if you would live your life like a zombie. And in the same text, Dogen Zenji says, the wise person thinks about other people's lives as if it was his own. So the stupid person thinks about his own life as if it was somebody else's. The wise person thinks about other people's lives just as if it was his own life. So I think that's meant here when Sawaki Roshi says, when you practice Zen, it has to be here and now. It has to be about yourself. Don't let Zen become a rumor that has nothing to do with you. And then another one, right next to Komazawa University. That's a university in Tokyo and it belongs to the Soto school. Sawaki Roshi actually also, he taught there. He also had a position as a professor at that university. right next to Komazawa University Zazen Hall. So because it's part of Sotoshu, they also have a meditation hall. Right next to the Zazen Hall is the baseball field. You might wonder, why has a Buddhist, a Zen university, a baseball field? Actually, when you ask Japanese, normal Japanese, if they have heard about Komazawa University, a lot of them have heard about it. But few know that it belongs to the Soto school. Few know it's a Buddhist university because, well, it also has other courses. You can study social sciences, humanities there. But they also put a lot of effort in the sports activities. So they have a really strong baseball team. They're also strong at marathon. There's a very famous marathon in Japan, Hakone. Hakone, how do they call it? Ekiden? A relay, kind of relay run that they do every New Year. And there's about 20 or so universities that participate each year, and Komazawa is one of the strongest. That's why many Japanese know it. They are strong in running, they're strong in baseball. So maybe even there, the teachers at university, they think that more important than Zazen is the sports department. Anyway, the baseball field is right next to the Zazen hall, and Sawaki Roshi says, right next to Komazawa University Zazen hall is the baseball field. When you hear the cheerleaders practicing before their games, you can truly understand how much we neglect the self. I don't know if everybody here is familiar with the cheerleaders, because for some reason in European soccer, football, we don't have cheerleaders. But I think in American sports and also Japanese sports is very big. Basically, the boys do the sports traditionally, and the girls, part of them, they are cheerleaders, and they dance with the mini skirts, and they do their songs to, how do you say, support the boys. And it's basically all about the winning, the losing, and the cheerleader girls, and you could say the same about the spectators. They get very worked up, but they're not even part of the game. They're only cheering for their team without even being part of the game. But that's how we spend a lot of our life, kind of cheering for a game we're not even a part of. How much we understand, we neglect the self. You can truly understand how much you neglect the self. And kind of Zazen would be more or less the opposite. There's no winning or losing, but you're totally present. You're totally in touch with yourself. You're not cheering for one or the other team. It's not about winning or losing, but it's about you being here, present in this moment. Let's do another one. Zazen is the Buddha that we form of our raw flesh. So when people talk about the Buddha, often they think about this golden statue that they saw somewhere in a temple, somewhere in Thailand or in Japan, the Buddha. Or in Pure Land Buddhism, the Buddha is supposed to exist in the far west and help us after we die to be reborn in the Pure Land. But here Sawaki Roshi says, no, the Buddha is this piece of flesh that's sitting on the cushion. And 2 weeks ago we talked about the 500 monkeys. You might think that, well, if I sit like a Buddha on the cushion, I'm just like a monkey that's imitating an arahant, an arhat. But the moment this piece of raw flesh imitates the Buddha, you are a Buddha. Buddha is what you form with your raw flesh. Let me do just one more. Just sitting, or shikantaza in Japanese. Shikantaza means just sitting. Just sitting is the greatest thing that we can do with the raw flesh of an ordinary person. So we use this body to earn money, work. Sometimes we cheer for our favorite football or soccer team. We use it for a lot of things, but most of the time we use it as part of the game. And just sitting, giving ourselves a break, just being here, allowing this body to sit like a Buddha. The greatest thing that you can do with this body. On the other hand, of course, from a different perspective, people might think, what a waste of time, what a waste of time. You could do so many things in this half an hour. You could do so many things, so many pleasant things with this body. But I think many of us had this experience that you chase for happiness, you try to have fun, and at the end of the day you realize I was just a slave of this idea. I need to have fun, I need to enjoy myself, I need to collect at least as many points as the others. I don't want to be a loser. And you spend the whole day as a slave of this idea. I need to collect just as many points as the others. So Zazen means to take a break from that game. It means to stop being a slave. That's what is meant with liberation. That's what we mean when we talk about liberation. In Buddhism, you stop being a slave of your own desires. Okay, so much from my side. If you have questions, anything you would like to share, you're welcome to do so. Gleb raised his hand. Gleb, please.
Good evening. So, I wanted to first of all say that liberation and freedom in general are indeed quite painful, given the feelings that we may have during sitting. Um, but I have a question, and the question is about this, so to say, absence of difference between Buddha and the one who sits. I'm wondering about those miracles described in many scriptures performed by the Buddha. Uh, First followers by the Buddha, he obtained them by showing them not their, but his supernatural power and self. Like, I don't remember exactly the names, but there was some noble guy accompanied with some other person, maybe a guard or someone else, and he initially saw uh, a poor man even with the holes in his clothes and so on and so forth. So someone they don't usually even get in touch with. But since that hobo was actually a Buddha, the Buddha revealed his supernatural self to that nobleman, and that nobleman with his with the man accompanying him immediately become arhat or someone of his closest followers. Who can... So, if I'm already Buddha, where are my superpowers? This is my question. Thank you.
Where are your superpowers? Hmm. Hmm. There's a chapter in the Shobogenzo by Dogen where he's talking about mystical powers. And there's this example of a master who just had a nap. He had a nap and he wakes up and one of the students brings him a towel so he can wash his face. And he says, wow, you have mystical powers. And another student brings him a cup of tea and he says, wow, you also have mystical powers. And of course, none of us is especially surprised. But aren't those the mystical powers that are really important? You understand how a person feels. You can adapt to that. You can help a person in need. And all of the rest, like levitating and stuff like this, changing your appearance, I don't know. I mean, um, today, I mean, you can travel from Japan to Europe in a couple of hours. I don't know if the Buddha could do that. We have lots of powers. We can, right now, there's almost 20 of us sitting in different parts of the world communicating. At the time of the Buddha, those would be incredible mystical powers. But because we possess those powers, we understand it's really not so much. Even if I can talk with you right now, although we are in different places, we have this power and we can travel in planes and maybe at some point we can even travel to Mars. But who cares? Those are not the powers that count. It's more like when you see somebody thirsty, you give them a glass of water. Here, why don't you drink a cup? I think those are the powers that are needed, the real powers of a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. And I think we all have these powers. It's just the question if we really use the power or if most of the time we don't really care so much about the thirsty person in front of us.
What made Buddha so special then? Why people continued following Buddha? Why
Hmm.
it's not one day it's Buddha preaching, the other day it's Mahakashyapa preaching,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
next day, I don't know, someone
Hmm.
else preaching. Why there
Yes.
was Buddha on some special place and his followers, if everyone's kind of the same? Didn't they get that absolute realization, allowing them to be as Buddha and to preach as Buddha?
Hmm. I'm not so familiar with the Pali Canon, where probably these examples that you quote are from. But he has a very special position there. He has these also physical 32 attributes that only a Buddha has, a very long tongue and stuff like that. And none of us has this long tongue that I think the Buddha, with the tip of his tongue, he could reach his ear or something like that. And his hands, he could reach down to the knee when he was standing up. The hands would go down until the knees. So in the Pali Canon, the Buddha is a special person, and none of us are like this. Um, but even in the Pali Canon, often one of the students talks instead of the Buddha. And I think when he died, The Buddha said to Ananda, you don't have to worry because I, the Buddha, am not kind of what you base your practice on. You base it on your own practice, on yourself, and the Dharma. The Dharma is what you rely on. You practice relying on the Dharma and on yourself. So even the Buddha said, it's not about him, it's not about the person. So none of us will become like Shakyamuni was, but that's not the point. It's about Buddha, at least according to Buddhism, was the first to actually quit the game. He could have become a king. He was married, he had a son. He could have been happy according to the standards of the time, but he was the first to show us how to quit the game, how to be free from this desire to collect points. That makes him special, but each of us can do the same. Each of us can follow his example.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else you would like to share? Werner, I can hardly hear you, but I hear some noises from your side.
Yeah, stop talking now because I don't know what it is that you hear only noise. Stop speaking.
I can hear you talking, but I can't understand what you are talking. Anybody else you would like to ask or share something? Yeah, Werner, if maybe next week or so the microphone problem gets solved. This week it seems you're hard to understand. There's a problem with my internet. Maybe it's the internet, yeah. Here in Japan, it's just 9 o'clock, 1 minute past 9. If you have no other questions, I would finish for today, and next week we are back at the precious mirror samadhi text. So we're approaching the end. The text is talking more about practical aspects of the teacher-student relationship. And then in 2 weeks, I will get back to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a nice week and hope to see you again. Thank you also, Schwan, for hosting us here, as always. See you. Bye.